I drove him over here. I don't know. Sorry. Yeah, just was interested in learning about what Batman was learning, just the wisdom. So,
Cool. Okay, well, welcome.
yeah.
Okay. Alec, give me a feedback. When we start with the prayers, but we do prayers in English, that will be understandable by everybody. So we'll just start with our prayers. In page 1, introduction. These prayers go through a chain of teachers going back all the way to Krishna. Yes? So we start with our prayer. Each prayer we pray that we get the intelligence and understanding to understand Bhagavad Gita. I was born with darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and to the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das and Raghunath Bhatt, Pala Bhatta and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Vedanta, Srivas and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates Sri Lalita and Vishaka. O my dear Krishna, O Sri Mercy, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the cowherd men and the lover of the gopis, especially Srimati Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Vishwamanu and very dear to Lord Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. I offer my obeisances to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivas, and all others in the line of devotion.
Can you tell us what is the obeisance?
Obeisances means to pay respect or to kind of bow down in front of somebody.
Okay.
Is a word for obeisances. Especially we call it Dandavat Pranam. Have you seen Danda? The word Danda. This is the Sanskrit word for obeisances. Dandavat. Danda means falling like a rod. This word Danda means falling like a rod. When somebody prostrate themselves in front of somebody, that's called obeisances. So this word Dandavat Pranam.
It means wholeheartedly.
Yes, it means with the whole body. Using the whole body, we can bow down in front of somebody. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. So in Bhagavad Gita, this book as it is which you are studying, you have read the setting the scene, everybody has read the preface, and everybody has read the introduction. Yes? Any questions I will start with? Any questions about introduction? Abhishek, you wrote me some questions, yes? Abhishek wrote me some questions, but any questions just reading this introduction? You were lost with something or you did not understand something? Yes, good.
When you showed us page number 30, the discipline succession.
Correct.
So why is the name of Arjuna not here? I was like this to figure out.
That's a very good question. Why is the name of Arjuna not here? Now, there are many names which are not here. There are two reasons for it. When Arjuna, if you see text number 4, Vyasadeva, if you see in the disciplic succession, number 4, Vyasa was a contemporary of Arjuna. Although Arjuna heard Bhagavad Gita from Krishna, it was Vyasadeva who actually wrote it down. So in this lineage, the most prominent, let's say 10 of you hear Bhagavad Gita today. One of you become the torch bearer of Gita. That name will be in this lineage. And this lineage has gaps, sometimes spanning hundreds of years or thousands of years. For example, after Krishna spoke to Brahma, which was 151 trillion years ago, we go to Narada. Why is there nobody in between? After Narada, there is Vyasadeva, which is 5,000 years ago. So these are the most principal authorities who have been the most important chain in that disciplic succession. So Vyasadeva was a contemporary. He wrote it down, and he's the one who kind of trained his disciples to carry the succession forward. Arjuna, as we know, that Arjuna ruled along with Yudhishthira for 35 years. He was a saintly king, but he was not the one who was responsible for transmission of this message. So these teachers are all, like for example, so 22 is Lord Chaitanya, 23 is Rup, Swarup and Sanatan, they are his direct disciples. And then 24 are Raghunath and Jiva, who are also direct disciples. But then 25, Krishna Das is also a direct disciple. But between 25 and 26, there is a gap of about 200 years. Like that.
Yeah, so one of the questions Simon was the difference between Brahmana, Bhagwan, and Paramatma. So why is it important to understand the difference between these three? Is it because these terms will appear in Bhagavad Gita? And
Yes, and you will get this idea why the impersonal aspect of Godhead and the personal aspect of Godhead. Why is there this difference important? This will become clear to you as you will go in your life and your understanding of theology in general. Because in any system of philosophy, this distinction is important to understand, and this will come again and again.
Okay.
It does come again and again.
So you said it can be useful in our life?
Yes.
How?
Well, you'll find out. You'll find out. What is the difference between an impersonal conception of Godhead and a personal conception? You will see in Bhagavad Gita it comes again and again. You know, God is has a form, and in his form as Brahman, he's all pervading and his formless aspect is there. But the fact that God has a form and has a personal form, this has very deep theological implications. Okay. Abhishek asked about karma, that out of the 5 items, we say that there is cycles of destruction. So Prakriti also goes through destruction, But why only is karma not eternal? How is then Prakriti eternal? Right? Abhishek, that was one question you asked. Prakriti, although goes through transformation, this material nature as material energy of Krishna, it is manifest and it sometimes remains in an inert state and then it manifests again. At the time of destruction, when Brahma goes to sleep or between the yuga cycles, Prakriti may go through changes and transformations, but it still remains as it is. Only in the inert and manifest state the difference happens. Karma is what is our understanding of karma? What is karma? That's an important point to understand. Karma means action, karma, work, action, and every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So the cycle of action and reaction is what is called karma. Can I break this cycle permanently? The answer is yes. That is why it is not eternal. Karma is manifest in 4 phases. Karma, according to Vedas, is the first one is called prarabdha. Prarabdha means manifest. Manifest karma. What right now, I have a certain body. Why am I not lame?
Jenny, that penny, extra penny. You can just. Do you have any extra penny? Oh, right. One is enough.
I could have been born with Down syndrome, or I could have been born crippled. I have a body, I'm this is what I got. I cannot change it. I'm relatively healthy. This is my prarabdha karma. I could have been born with whatever circumstances you were born, whatever mind you were born with. I could have been born as Bill Gates too. I could have been born in the family of the Sheikh in Saudi Arabia, the ruler of Saudi Arabia. I could have been born. So this is my prarabdha manifest karma. This is the sum total of all my activities and my desire. Karma is equal to my activities and my desire. Activities plus desire is called karma. Why do I have certain predilections? Why do I have certain mental states of orientation? It's based upon my previous activities and desire. Let me ask you a question. Just about 10 years ago or so, there was this beautiful Bollywood actress, okay? She gave birth to a baby. Her name is, some of you are familiar, she's very popular. She's like the Julia Roberts of Bollywood, okay? Her name is Aishwarya Rai. She had a baby. And a reporter took a picture. She's going out of the hospital. Her father-in-law, Amitabh Bachchan, is holding the baby. She's holding the bottle. Her husband, who's also a very popular movie actor, he's holding diapers and stuff. And they're going out of the hospital to their home. And there is another baby born in a slum in Bombay. Her mother is trying to cook something, and there's a dog, and the baby is lying in a slum. It's basically sort of a slum area, and the baby's crying. So the reporter took a photo and he put it next to each other. Can you tell me why is this difference? Or can you tell me why somebody's born with an intelligence that allows him to go to Harvard and Princeton, and why somebody's born with cerebral palsy?
Previous karma.
Karma. Your answer is karma. Do you all agree with that? Do you have any questions about it? Do you disagree?
How do we know that it's because
That's a good question. How do we know? But why is there a difference? You tell me. Can you give an explanation? So there are 2 ways to look at this question. This is important, Mohit, because this deals with the idea of reincarnation. It deals with the idea of transmigration of the soul, reincarnation, transmigration of the soul. According to Gita, if you look at Gita 2.12, in 2.12, page 76, Krishna says, can anybody read this verse just loudly?
never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be.
Cease to be. Krishna is telling Arjuna, never was there a time Never was there a time when I or you or any of these things did not existed, and never will there be a time when we will cease to exist. Okay? Read text 13.
As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change.
Krishna gives a very clear analogy, and this is a very fundamental aspect of Gita based upon these two verses. Krishna gives an analogy. The Atma is in the body of a 5-year-old. That 5-year-old, when he becomes 25 years old, the physical body changes. According to the science, the body, every cell in your body changes every 7 years. But the person is the same. And when you change it to 45 years old, the person is the same. And when you change it to 65 years old, the desires, the activities, my physical features all changes. So there is this beautiful image here. So this is in between the pictures.
78.
P7.
Oh. 420.
After the page 428, there is a series of images. Yeah, you're right. You got it. And you just open on plate 5.
Yeah.
You need to go next.
Yeah.
This is a very foundational teaching of Gita. Krishna, by the way, starts speaking in Bhagavad Gita 2.11, and this is what he says in 2.12 and 2.13. This is what he's speaking. You see this image. Just look at it, it's very self-explanatory. Below the plate 5, there is a caption. It says, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. And that soul, it takes its karma with it. The good, the bad, the transcendental, all of that, it takes with him. And it takes its desires with him. The gross body is cast off. But the subtle body, which is your mind, your intelligence, and your ego, that goes with you. Another extension of the same idea, Arjuna asks, you open 641. Open 637, chapter 6, text 37. And Kriti, can you read the verses from 637 onward? Just read the English translation.
Arjuna said, O Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later resists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism?
The question is, O Krishna, what happens to one who takes to the path of self-realization, but due to worldly mindedness cannot complete it? Read 638.
O mighty Aunt Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a ribbon cloud with no position in any sphere?
30.
This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt.
40.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said,
Krishna, so everybody get the question? You got the question, right? Text 40. Krishna answers.
Son of Pratha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good my friend, is never overcome by evil. The unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy.
42.
Or, if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly, such a birth is rare in this world.
That's 43.
On taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success. O son of Kuru.
44.
By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures.
And final 45.
And when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately achieving perfection after many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal.
So, summarize. Can anybody summarize these verses? What is the question? What is the answer?
So the question was, what happens if someone starts the process of self-realization but they couldn't achieve it successfully at the end of their life? What happens with such person? Then Krishna says in three, he breaks down in three things. That first is the person who actually attains transcendental. He is a transcendentalist who is successful. His soul doesn't perish in any of the three realms. Second one is someone who is like he wants to be self-realized but is still disturbed or distracted in mundane material things. So they come back in an aristocratic family.
First, he goes to the planet where the pious dwell. He goes to heavenly realms. And he enjoys his material desires for many lifetimes. Then he takes birth in aristocratic family or in a family where transcendental wisdom is readily available. Then what happens to him? He becomes attracted to the principles of yoga even without seeking it. By virtue of his divine consciousness, he becomes attracted to the yoga principles even without seeking it. And then, when he makes further progress, after many births and deaths, he attains perfection and he goes back to the spiritual world. In Bhagavad Gita, this idea of many births and deaths, these two ideas of reincarnation and transmigration appear repeatedly. And that perfection in spiritual life, although it can be a one lifetime process, and it can be, generally it's a multi-lifetime process. So this karma, when we fell from the spiritual world down to this material realm, we begin to accumulate our karma. And what we are now is a product of our previous lifetime of activities plus our desires. And that is called prarabdha, manifest. What is manifest now? Any questions in your mind about this?
Yeah. So, just when someone just born in you said person that born in two different families, you can just someone born in a just very poor family, can we say that he was a bad person in just previous life?
When I ascribe the word bad, good, it can create labels, judgmentalism, and it is usually a cruel thing to say to somebody. But you tell me, somebody is born in a slum, somebody is born with cerebral palsy or malignant tumors in a slum, and somebody is born in a family of, let's say, the richest monarchy in Jordan. Explain to me the difference, why?
Just based on that, we can say that the person who just born in the rich family has just achieved more spiritual in previous life, but
not spiritual. Why is he born in that situation? Why?
Just the reaction of the universe to what he has done previously.
Correct. There you go. There you go. There you go. Why is somebody born with beauty, intelligence, wealth, name, fame? Yes, you can also achieve these things through hard work, but that's sort of like, I give you a little field of operation, and you kind of can change a little bit in that. Some people, again, some people could be born in very humble circumstances and they could go on to earn billions of dollars with their hard work. But a person who's delivering your post and who's cleaning toilets is also working equally hard. So this will come in Gita again and again, this field of activity.
Now,
Kriti.
when you said that, somebody is born in, like, I will not say rich or poor, I'll say a family or, which has more resources of following yoga or something. That is the purpose, right? That you get increased by what you did in your past life, and then you go to a better, resourced place when you take the course. But I personally feel that like being born in a very resourceful family doesn't mean that you are coming anywhere closer to this.
You're absolutely right. That's a brilliant insight into this purport. That's why Krishna differentiates. That is why, now read the verses again more carefully. That is why Krishna differentiates. So we will look at text 41 and 42 again. 641 and 642 again. In 641, I'll read to you. It says, the unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planet of pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people, rich aristocracy. Purport. The unsuccessful yogis are divided into two classes. One is fallen after very little progress, and one is fallen after long practice of yoga. The yogi who falls after a short period of practice goes to the higher planets where pious entities are allowed to enter. After prolonged life there, one is sent back to this planet to take birth in a family of righteous Vaishnavas. Now when I say Brahmana really means somebody who's advanced in knowledge. That's all it means. Or of aristocratic merchants. But in text 42, or if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are great in wisdom. Such a birth is rare in this world. So there are two kinds of people. One who practice self-realization, maybe for a short period of time. That credit of self-realization continues with them. It allows them to go to heavenly planets, and again, when their credits are exhausted, they again take birth in at least rich families. But somebody who has cultivated this consciousness for a long period of time, text 42, or if unsuccessful after a long practice of yoga, generally those are the people who take birth in families where spiritual knowledge is readily available to them. And in text 43, Krishna says that, he revives the divine consciousness. And text 44, he says, by virtue of the divine consciousness, even if he take birth in a family which is not very conducive to spiritual life, he automatically becomes attracted to yogic principles. Even without seeking them. He will have a higher inquiry. He will have a higher questioning in his life. So karma, continuing forward, this is called prarabdha karma manifest. The second is aprarabdha. Aprarabdha is, I'm living a pretty decent life, but tomorrow I die in a car accident, or in James Cancer Hospital, there are many 43 and 44 years old who have cancer, who were diagnosed among them. Aprarabdha karma, means not manifest, unmanifest. There are certain activities I have done for which I have to pay, and that's round the corner, aprarabdha, unmanifest. The third is called bija. Bija means seed. Seed. Karma is there. Certain desires are there, certain proclivities are there. The environment is not conducive right now. As soon as the environment is conducive, those proclivities and those tendencies will bear fruit. And the fourth one is kuta. Kuta really means a stockpile of all my karma which I am not paying right now. It's like a stockpile of karma which is not matured yet. But it is millions and millions of lifetimes of karma which is sitting there. Why Krishna says this is not eternal is all of this can be nullified with the practice of bhakti yoga. All of this can be in one shot. I can finish all of this and I can attain liberation or entry into the kingdom of God. You can go back home, go back to Godhead and finish this assembly line. This assembly line of birth, old age, disease, death, and then birth, old age, disease, death, and this cycle goes on. This assembly line can be broken. So that is why karma is not eternal. Questions?
I have a question. We have also, there are many cases where a child is born who's handicapped or dies after he or she is born. So
And there are millions of kids who are aborted as well.
Yeah, so is that the karma of the child or the parents?
Both. The child has to suffer, he has to go through death, and the parents have to suffer.
So I think for the child it would be prarabdha and for the parents it would be aprarabdha.
No, both of them are actually suffering manifest karma. You have a child, in your question, you have a child who's born with a terminal disease.
Yeah.
And he dies. He's born with cystic fibrosis, Downs, whatever it is. That's prarabdha, that's right there, manifest. Unmanifest is what's around the corner, what's lurking around the corner. Tomorrow I get hit by a lawsuit or a disease or an accident. That's not manifest right now, unmanifest. This one, the tendencies and the proclivities are there. It's just requiring some time to mature. This one is a huge stockpile, which right now, like for example, sometimes we have a credit card. You can take $10, $100. You don't have to pay, you just have to pay the minimum payment. But then there comes a point where you have to start making payment. You are not making payment on this karma right now.
How are the karma segregated to this group? What goes to where?
Right now, whatever I am facing, this is my prarabdha. Whatever I am facing right now. Unmanifest or aprarabdha is what is coming in the future. So this is coming later. And this will come either in subsequent lifetimes or in this lifetime much later.
But don't you think if we could have faced all the karma as then we would make much more improvement?
If we can suffer all of the karma, then we can be free from karma. We may not have the ability to handle it all at once.
But sometimes what happens is people are leading a very good life, everything is so nice, they're doing good activities, and suddenly something happens and they start blaming. What did I do wrong in my life? I didn't do anything.
It's not, exactly. There is no blame. According to Gita, there is a very, very fair game. There is a fair game. There is no chance, there is no lottery, there is no chance according to Gita. Krishna talks about this. I hope I can find that. I'll email you. Krishna describes this process of transmigration and reincarnation in detail. How this everything works. I think it's in 14. I think I can find it so that you can see for yourself. for some reason.
Do you know like the translation of it?
Krishna says you get a certain kind of senses based upon your desires and activities, and you transmigrate from one body to another. Those who are transcendentalists can see this, those who are ignorant cannot see this.
Oh, it's in Shiva Bhagavata?
No, it's in Gita. Anyway, I'll find it, but that's irrelevant to this discussion. So the most important point is this karma is, although it is beginningless and it has been we're reaping and sowing the seeds for billions of lifetimes, this can be finished by the process of bhakti yoga or Krishna consciousness in one stroke.
Okay, so my question is still that like when we say like time is eternal, right? And we like Krishna says there was no time that you did not exist or I did not exist. So if we existed, so that there should be the karma as well, or even if there was no karma, we are with, like you say, like you get the out of the foundation of karma and you go back to Godhead. Then you again, then is it because it would be some starting point, like if you, because everyone comes.
Where the starting point begins, yes? This is a good question, Abhishek, and this question has been entertained by theologians, When did it begin? The understanding from the Vedas is this: we are created as individual units of consciousness to relate with Supreme Consciousness for pleasure and enjoyment. At some point, we decide that no, we don't want to be in that realm. We want to be independent enjoyer, controller, and proprietor. And at that time, our fall into the material sojourn begin. And we get these material bodies. And from that point on, it starts. Once we are purified, the Vedas say once bitten is twice shy. Once you finish this and go back to the spiritual world, you do not take birth again. 15.15. Okay, I found the other verses too. So why don't we just read from 15.4 onwards, Abhishek? 15.4, page number 595.
The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world.
The tree refers to the karma of the living entity. This is Krishna himself is saying that the real form of the tree cannot be perceived. But read this.
No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and then surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial.
Text 5. So you see this, Krishna says here himself, having once attained will never return. And he will repeat this theme many times.
Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understands the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. That supreme abode of mind is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by the fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world.
So this text 6, Nata bhasate surya no shashankana pavaka. There is no need for sun or moon or fire or electricity. Once who achieves that, he never returns. Text 7.
The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind.
You got that right? We are struggling, although we are part and parcel of Krishna, Being separated from him, we are struggling because of this mind. Text 8. Now, this is the whole process of transmigration. Krishna explains very graphically what happens.
The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus, he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this.
Krishna says that this process of living entity quitting one body and taking another, he says, Vimura nanu pashyanti. Those who are fools, Vimuras, text 10, nanu pashyanti jnana chakshusha, whose eyes are trained by knowledge, they can see all of this. Text 11.
The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, so they may try. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me, and the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon, and thereby supply the use of light to all vegetables. I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming, to digest the 4 kinds of food stuff. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. There are 2 classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible. In the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible. Besides these 2, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord Himself, who has entered the 3 worlds and is maintaining them. Because I am the transcendental beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in the full devotional service to me, O son of Partha. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection.
Krishna says in the 15th chapter about how a living entity transmigrates, that there are 2 kinds of living entities, those who are in the spiritual world, those who are in the material world, and how he is maintaining everything. So this is, we actually read the whole 15th chapter just now, Bhagavad Gita. One chapter of Gita we just read. I'll give you a little homework from the purports so that you can get a chance to read the purports and answer questions. But anything else about this karma yoga? I want to discuss yoga ladder, and I want to discuss Vedic cosmology. This, at least the essential points of karma and how to transcend karma, at least that is clear.
So I did not understand the difference between reincarnation and transmigration.
Same thing.
Okay, just
Same.
words.
Transmigration means soul goes from one body to another. Reincarnate, the word carnal means flesh. The carnal means flesh. Reincarnate means the soul takes another carnation, another flesh.
Yeah. I was just wondering how it is that you think that every death is lined up with another birth, if that makes sense.
Yes.
If the population is growing,
Good question about population. Think about these ideas. We always talk about human population. 7 billion, it used to be 4 or 5 billion, now there are 7 billion. There are at least 100 trillion bacteria in your gut. There are at least 100 trillion ants on the soil. If you take a handful of soil, the amount of living entities would outnumber every single human being on the planet.
And the point there is that the soul is not just in the human body, but it's in each and every living entity.
Yes, correct.
And one can become any form
Yes.
based on.
Yes, open 18th chapter. Open page number 674, chapter 18, text 20. Charlotte, can you read very quickly those verses?
That knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities, though they are divided into innumerable forms, you should understand to be in the mode of goodness.
Read the purport.
Purport. A person who sees one spirit soul in every living being, whether a demigod, human being, animal, bird, beast, aquatic, or plant, possesses knowledge in the mode of goodness. In all living entities, one spirit soul is there, although they have different bodies in terms of their previous work. As described in the 7th chapter, the manifestation of the living force in every body is due to the superior nature of the Supreme Lord. Thus, to see that one superior nature, that living force in every body, is to see in the mode of goodness. That living energy is imperishable, although the bodies are perishable. Differences are perceived in terms of the body because there are many forms of material existence in conditional life. The living force appears to be divided. Such impersonal knowledge is an aspect of self-realization.
Text 21, just read the translation.
That knowledge by which one sees that in every different body there is a different type of living entity, you should understand to be in the mode of passion. And that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all-in-all without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness.
Krishna says in the 18th chapter that one who can see the spirit soul in every entity, that knowledge is in mode of goodness. That knowledge by which one sees that in different body there's a different type of living entity. Only human beings are sacred. You can kill all the animals, you can kill all the trees, you can destroy the environment. This knowledge is in the mode of passion. And that knowledge by one is attached to one kind of work as all in all, without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness. Which is that was Brahmane Gavi Hastani Shuricheva Sobhakija Pandita Samadvachina.
It's in Srimad Bhagavatam?
No, Bhagavad Gita we're reading. We were discussing it this afternoon. Anyways, so this idea that there is spirit soul, actually if you look at the plates, you open to plate number 7. So this idea of plate number 7 is that there is this spirit soul within every entity. And the verse is actually page number 246. If you just turn to page 246, chapter 5, text 19. Charlotte, can you just read real quick the translation and the first few lines of the purport?
Sure. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and a gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater outcast. A Krishna-conscious person does not make any distinction between species or castes. The Brahmana and the outcast may be different from the social point of view, or a dog, a cow, and an elephant may be different from the point of view of species. But these differences of body are meaningless from the viewpoint of a learned transcendentalist. This is due to their relationship to the Supreme, for the Supreme Lord, by his plenary portion as Paramatma, is present in everyone's heart. Such an understanding of the Supreme is real knowledge. As far as the bodies are concerned, in different castes or different species of life, the Lord is equally kind to everyone because he treats every living being as a friend, yet maintains himself as Paramatma regardless of the circumstances of the living entities. The Lord as Paramatma is present both in the outcast and in the Brahmana, although the body
The
of a
word Brahmana only refers to a learned transcendentalist. That's all.
Although the body of a Brahmana and that of an outcast are not the same. The bodies are material productions of different modes of material nature, but the soul and the super soul within the body are of the same spiritual quality. The similarity in the quality of the soul and the super soul, however, does not make them equal in quantity, for the individual soul is present only in that particular body, whereas the Paramatma is present in each and every body. A Krishna conscious person has full knowledge of this, and therefore he is truly learned and has equal vision. The similar characteristics of the soul and super soul are that they are both conscious, eternal, and blissful. But the difference is that the individual soul is conscious within the limited jurisdiction of the body, whereas the super soul is conscious of all bodies. The super soul is present in all bodies without distinction.
In other words, there is within the body there are two entities. One is the Atma or the soul, which is who I am. And there is an expansion of Godhead called Paramatma, that super soul or supreme consciousness who lives within me. When I see a living entity, according to Bhagavad Gita, real knowledge is to see that Paramatma and Atma in every living entity. Atma is limited to the jurisdiction of one body, but the Paramatma is expanded to every body, even in this fly which is flying here. To see that, according to Gita, is real knowledge. Anything else?
How do animals react karma? Because I think they have also karmas.
They don't. When we talk about karma, it only applies to human existence. There are there are 8.4 million species of life. Okay? Based upon one's karma, one may evolve from one body to another. It is only when the soul inhabits the human form of body, he has responsibility. He has responsibility because he has a choice. Animals don't have a choice. They are simply going through, they are reaping the past effects of their bad karma. And they have to go through an evolutionary cycle on reaping that bad karma to come to the human form of life. And when you get a human form of life, according to Bhagavad Gita, human form of life is a rare, precious gift. It is almost like earning a $8.4 million lottery. And now you have responsibility and you have choice. And the karma, animals don't create any new karma. They don't create any. If a lion is to go to hunt down a deer and eat it, that's perfectly fine because that's the nature of the world. If a malarial parasite were to come and bite me and kill me, that's perfectly normal. He's not incurring any new karma. But in human life, I have responsibility and I have choice. So now I can, in this human form of life, I can finish the karma, or I can sow seeds for another 1 million births. I can either finish, I have a choice by practice of yoga, I can finish this thing completely. That is why this knowledge has meaning and relevance. That is why we are all here. And that exactly is what's going to take us to the yoga ladder. Anything else about this? Does this make sense?
I'm wondering if Gita talks anything about like shorter or longer lifespan of a person. How does that relate? If someone doesn't get to live as long as others, how does the karma factor in?
Yes.
In that?
How do lifespan factors into that? Okay, so we read chapter 17. There is something called, so Charita, there are two aspects here, there are two issues here. Shorter lifespan, longer lifespan, that's one question, but then the question is what happens, let's say somebody dies at the age of 10 years of age. Then what happened, right? He probably didn't have any time to make any choices or conduct karma, right? That's the real point, is that correct?
Yeah.
Right? That's the question. What if somebody dies at 4 or 5 years of age? This human form of life, as I said, there are three modes of material nature. Goodness, passion, and ignorance. A very simple answer actually to your question is, if somebody dies prematurely, he is, now of course karma is a complex thing and I won't be able to mathematically connect every single dot, and that's hard to do. That's what Krishna acknowledges too, that this tree, where it begins, where it ends, where its branches are, it's hard to understand. So that person, usually he just kind of created the paid for the bad debt. He will get another opportunity. That's the general understanding is, he gets more opportunities to advance. Somebody is aborted by his mother, somebody dies young, short lifespan, what happens? He didn't really have any time to make any choices. He will get multiple choices, and those choices, those opportunities are conducted by a very intricate system of governance, which we call as Yamaraj, kind of, the Lord of Death. There are 33 million. In this entire cosmic universe, there are 33 million sort of appointed officers, whom we call as demigods. And they keep a very accurate account and a track. It is called Karamena, the Sanskrit word karma, Devena Netrena. Deva means demigods, Netrena means eyes. It is said that Karmena Deve Netrena, meaning by this cosmic governance of 33 million demigods, they keep an exacting record and account of everybody's karma, and that there is no mistake in this. The mills of God grind slowly, but they grind exceedingly fine. It's a biblical phrase. That sometimes, we don't see, somebody's really good, he's suffering, somebody's bad, he's not suffering. But ultimately, everything catches up with you. The guy who may be bad and is actually in a much better situation is simply reaping the good credit he has sowed. And what you sow is what you reap. What you sow is eventually what you reap.
In the same lifespan?
Not necessarily in the same lifespan. If you are, the understanding is that if you are very, your karma is minimal, Krishna, God may tell you in the same lifetime or very quickly, there's something called instant karma, that this is what you did is not good, you've got to stop this. But sometimes, if you don't listen to those messages and you act in modes of material nature, that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about modes of material nature. What are the modes of material nature and how they act? What we'll do is we'll just read through a little bit. It will give you a deeper understanding of what happens how karma is formed and created. So chapter 14.
I just have one small question. Do demigods have a karma or not? Like any
Very good question. Do demigods, those people who are in the heavenly realms, do they have karma? And I want to talk about Vedic cosmology, so I brought this chart. Yes, because they have choice and responsibility. They can go from heavenly realms to the kingdom of God, or they can finish up their time and come back to the earthly realm. And this will come in the modes of material nature. In Gita, out of the 700 verses, 145 verses talk about modes of material nature. And this may be a good time to kind of just look at those verses really quickly. Out of 700, about 20% of Gita deals with modes of material nature. There are three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. A basic idea is that those who are in goodness, those who live in goodness, they elevate themselves. Those who are in passion, they sort of remain as it is. And those who act out of ignorance, they go down. So let's look at these verses real quick. So chapter 14, we'll start with text 5. And if somebody can just read the verses, 5 verses each. Chapter 14, text 5.
Material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti, and because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive actions. O son of Bharata, know that the mode of darkness, born of ignorance, is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The result of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. O son of Bharata, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness, passion conditions one to fruitive action, and ignorance covering one's knowledge binds one to madness. So I teach.
Abhishek.
Sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the modes of passion and ignorance. O son of Bharata, sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance, and at other times ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy. The manifestation of the mode of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge. For chief of the Bharatas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, fruitive activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering develop. When there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, O son of Kunti, darkness, inertia, madness, and illusion are manifested. When one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains to the pure higher planets of great ages. When one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth among those engaged in fruitive activities. And when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom.
I hope this is making sense. This is kind of...
So in verse 13, so Krishna, when he says that when someone is like in mode of ignorance, they are in darkness, inertia, and madness and illusion. What is this? What illusion? Like,
What illusion?
illusion.
So few examples can be given. Let's look at the purport first. Purport. When there is no illumination, knowledge is absent. One in the mode of ignorance does not work by a regulative principle. He wants to act whimsically for no purpose. Even though he has the capacity to work, he makes no endeavor. This is called illusion. Although consciousness is going on, life is inactive. These are the symptoms of one in the mode of ignorance. Ignorance as opposed to knowledge, right? Ignorance as opposed to knowledge. So if this is ignorance, then what is knowledge according to Gita? This word knowledge, Krishna will say they have no knowledge. What is this knowledge? Chapter 13, text 8. We'll take a little detour, so that it will become clear that what is knowledge and what is ignorance. Thirteen. 13.8 to 12. These are 5 verses together.
Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of the self-realization and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these are I declare to be knowledge. And besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance.
So your question was, what is this illusion? We'll keep reading the modes of material nature.
My book seems to have 13.6 and then 13.
Right, 13.8 to 12. So we just read this issue. So we were at 14.16.
The result of pious action is pure and is said to be in the mode of goodness. But action done in the mode of passion results in misery, and action performed in the mode of ignorance results in foolishness. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance develop foolishness, madness, and illusion. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets. And those in the abominable mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds.
When one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature. When the embodied being is able to transcend these 3 modes of associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distress, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. Arjuna inquired, "O mighty Lord, by which symptoms is one who is transcendental to these 3 modes? What is his behavior, and how does he transcend the modes of nature?" The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear,
This is also a question to your question, answer to your question.
who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who is situated in the self and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal towards the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friends and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature."
One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness.
So chapter 14, chapter 17, and the major part of chapter 18 discusses modes of material nature. Bhava, you're smiling?
That's me, bro.
If you take out the R, a little introduction to what modes of material nature are: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Chapter 17 also talks about modes of material nature in detail. What I would like you to do is to read chapter 14, 17, and 18. The first 46 verses of 18 chapter also talks about modes of material nature. In addition to that, they are sprinkled all over the Gita, modes of nature. But 14, 17, and 18, that's your homework for this week. You read 14, 17, 18. And now, Priti's saying you are. That's a lot, Priti, you think? Is that a lot? No, okay. It's okay. Because it's simple, it's very easy, very small purpose, not too much of reading. It could be just, you'll find it engrossing to understand goodness, passion, and ignorance. Okay? Any other questions about what we have talked about here?
So Aprarabdha is like, it is, you said lurking, that
It's around the corner.
So like, how, I mean, we cannot see them, right? So how do we say that lurking? Like, we mean that what is going to come in the future? Or like, how do we give a, I cannot visualize that. Would you say?
Yeah, you're right. Nobody can visualize it. That is why it is called a prarabdha. You're absolutely right. The real question is, how can I get out of this quandary? How can I get out of this conundrum? How can I get out of this maze I find myself in? And that the answer to that is yoga, bhakti yoga. The answer to that is bhakti yoga. That you can actually even finish your prarabdha by doing bhakti. By practicing yoga of devotion, you can finish up everything and you can actually transcend everything. That's what Krishna said in this chapter 14, text 16. One who unfailingly engages in my devotional service at once overcome the mode of material nature and come to the level of Brahman. How can I overcome? How can I transcend? That's the question which everybody asks, right? That's the real question. So let's look at this yoga, what we're talking about. Okay, Mohit, is it okay to proceed further?
Well, I have a growing list of questions, but yeah.
Right. So you have a growing list of questions, and I'm sure Chavata, you too. That's why we can have a discussion on our email forum. I got most of your homeworks back either last night or today, but I really appreciate that you did it. Okay? And I got Abhishek's questions 10 minutes before I was going to move here. Okay? So we can have this Q&A. We can have this question and answer for a much longer period of time. But I do want to respect your time and this arrangement Alec and Shrestha has made for an hour and a half, So that's there. But apart from that, you have my phone number and email, and we can talk about it. But by the way, most of your questions will be answered as we go through the Gita. That's another beauty. I'm sure some questions got answered today, isn't that? Or maybe it generated a whole new list of questions, but some questions didn't get answered, right?
So is there a common forum where people ask questions so that we also can see that?
Our email.
So let's see Abhishek's question. Yeah, we can see his questions.
Right. His questions he didn't get
Except for homework.
because I asked them to only reply to me the answers to the homework.
What I can do is there is a
No, one thing. I have a proposal. Even the answers, if you're okay with it, can be replied to all, so that
At a set time point, like.
right. I know, because then there is no. Yeah.
If there is a blog like where we can have all the answers, CM questions, CM.
But I think that's
Google
okay.
group or something.
That is still okay. And cheating is still
Or how about this? I can post, if you're okay with it, I can post everybody's answers after everybody has submitted their homework.
Yeah.
That's true.
Like, like a couple of days after the Monday thing. Is that okay? Everybody's answers I just posted to the group. And I will answer your questions, that okay, this is what I was looking for.
So this is a graded course?
What's that?
You're gonna grade them? Or?
Well, yes. The question is, what do we do really with the grades? Because there's no pass or fail. Certificate is there. So Shrestha, you figure it out. How do we do this? Grading system.
Based on how you get, everyone will get the certificate with A plus, A
And
minus.
half of the students
Shasta, we didn't really thought about it.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious.
No, but that's a good question, and that's generally how it works, Generally how it works. It's a good question.
No, I was asking about like you are in a situation where you you are against an animal and then you have to kill, otherwise you won't survive.
Yes.
Defense, self-defense.
So in that situation that you get the bad karma, but animals.
No, in self-defense, if you kill and there is no other option, and you didn't put yourself in that situation to begin with. For example, if I don't clean my basement, and I have cockroaches in my basement, and I keep killing them, at some point the karmena devena netrena, the devtas are going to say, well, this guy is really a fool. We're meant to keep our house clean, right? Now, if I don't keep it clean and I keep injuring other living entities because of my own foolishness, there will be some karma involved. But in emergency situations, in self-defense, in which there is no other option, there is no karma like that. However, there is a karma to the slaughterhouse civilization we have. Unnecessary killing billions of animals. It's not consistent with yoga practice. Any yoga practice has 4 principles. Number 1 is non-violence. Number 2 is chastity. Number 3 is mercy.
Sorry.
And no intoxication. So non-violence, chastity,
Cleanliness.
cleanliness, correct. That comes with chastity too, yeah. Anyway, any yoga practice which we talk in Bhagavad Gita, there are honesty. Thank you. Honesty. These principles help us in elevating ourselves in yoga. What is yoga? The yoga comes from a word called yoke, means to link or to connect. Okay? Yoga, according to Bhagavad Gita, means to connect with God. This God is appreciated as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Okay? As the divine supreme person, as the super soul manifesting in everyone's heart, and as the all-pervading spiritual energy called Brahman. So yoga means to connect with God, with Brahman, with Paramatma, with Bhagavan. And these principles, non-violence, as much as possible. Now, non-violence in this world is not absolutely possible. You have termites, you have critters, you have cockroaches, you have mosquitoes who are willing to kill you. What will you do? It's just not possible to have absolute non-violence. But as much as possible, non-violence, chastity, it's very self-explanatory. This idea of mercy ties to non-violence. No reading, no gambling, no intoxication. No intoxication. Generally, a life of a yogi, drinking and all of this, drugs and all of this is not conducive to yoga practice. And no gambling. Basically, living a life of honesty, integrity and honesty in your livelihood, in your dealings with others, in your general way you carry yourself. These things are conducive to yoga practice. You cannot engage in yoga and break these principles and make any advancement, okay? So these are the 4 sort of do's and don'ts. Anything about this? Any question about
What if someone is like addicted to, I don't know if there is such a thing, like addicted to chanting and they just want to do that and nothing else in life? What is that considered as? Like, is that something?
Addicted to medication or addicted to chanting? See, good addiction is good, Jonathan. Generally, those kind of people are rare. That's not considered an addiction in a bad way. Let's say somebody is chanting or engage in yoga or meditation. Is it good for them or is it bad for them?
I would say imbalance, like.
Imbalance.
Yeah.
Imbalance, to a certain extent, imbalance. Let's say you take, balance. Let's say somebody is starting from a very point A, B, C, D. If he's going up, slowly and gradually, he probably need to balance. But let's say somebody is very advanced in yoga practice. Let's say somebody has the ability to transcend ordinary activities and he can remain in trance.
Good. That's their chosen path of life then.
Then that's their calling. People have a certain calling. A computer genius, if he works on his computer 22 hours a day, people may call him nerd, but it's good for him. Somebody is working on a code or a program or is really passionate. Most Olympians train 14, 15, 16 hours a day and their life, what they eat, how much they sleep, where they go, it's all very regulated, right? So to achieve something very extraordinary, you may see people have extraordinary inputs. And that as long as it's good for them, it's okay. Addiction, but let's just take the example of alcohol or tobacco. Is it good for them? Does a heroin addict, yeah, he likes it, but does he want to be free from it? Of course he wants to be. If I'm addicted to food or sex life or Facebook, is it really good for me? I know it is not good for me. I'm addicted to sweets, I don't like it, but I can't help it. So that's the problem. But the same thing about a person who's really, deep into his practice, that's fine. It's good for him. He may do some works of genius. So that we talked about. Now we'll finish with yoga ladder.
So one question I had.
Yes, ma'am.
So the four principles of yoga, how do they connect to spirituality? Where does spirituality fit into those?
Yes, exactly. Yoga ladder. Animal life. Karma, Kanda. Karma yoga. Jnana yoga. Ashtanga yoga. And bhakti yoga. So this is the yoga ladder which we will be studying in Bhagavad Gita in the next 18 chapters. What is the difference between a human being who simply spends his entire human life, which is a precious gift and which is meant for self-realization and which is meant for understanding who we are? He simply spends his time in eating, mating, sleeping, and defending. According to the Bhagavad Gita, ahar, nidra, bhay, maithunam cha, samanya etat pashubhi naranam. What it means is, actually these four activities, animals are also doing. A pigeon has sex 200 times a day. A dog, I go to India, walk in my parikrama, at 6 in the morning, a dog is also having sex, a bull is also having sex, a pigeon is also having sex. So the point is, these four things, human beings can do better. We can have a multi-million-dollar home to sleep, but a bird is also sleeping. So these four things are common between humans and animals. Human life, the special prerogative is to attain self-realization, is to transcend the cycle of birth and death. Does anybody disagree with that? Or does anybody has any question about that?
What's the last one?
Eating, mating, sleeping, and defending. A dog, if you encroach in his territory, he will bark. I will throw a nuclear weapon on you. A very sophisticated nuclear weapon. I will put every country in this world spends between 40 to 50% of their budget on defense. Meaning 50% of the entire output from the earth, from industries, from natural resources is spent on developing missiles and guns and tanks and planes to kill other people. And some countries spend more. But ultimately, an animal is also defending himself. Every animal defends himself. Is that a real purpose of human existence? That I take 60% of the wealth of this world and make missiles so I can kill you? So the animal life in terms of yoga ladder, many humans are also pretty much, if that is the goal, we're pretty much here. Above that is karma kanda. What it means is, in every religion, in every tradition, in every society, people are like, okay, no. There are good and bad conduct. This is not good, this is virtue, there is system of ethics, and there is system of appeasing the gods to get material prosperity. I may do something, oh, this will be good for me, I'll become prosperous materially. I'll do some sacrifice or ritual, or I will do some work of charity or sacrifice or austerity so that materially I can be more emancipated. Is that right? In every system, in every culture, in every country, in every tradition, this is called karma kanda. Karma kanda is following a system of ethics, of charity, of sacrifice, of penance, of austerity to materially improve myself. Somebody can work very hard and make a lot of money. Or somebody can appease the gods or do some puja or do some sacrifice or do some worship, because this will be good for me. It will be good for me. Many of us, when we are in distress, we go to pray, we go to temples or mosques or synagogues or churches, so that my distress is removed. Isn't that right? All of this activity is considered within the framework of what is called as, we'll finish in 5 minutes, guys, okay? It's called karma kanda. Now, we have understood that if the purpose of life is self-realization, material emancipation has nothing to do with self-realization. Whatever condition of life I'm in, whether good or bad, it has nothing to do with self-realization. And that religion or that method of spirituality in which simply I go to the temple or church or mosque for some material exchange, that's not real self-realization. That's not yoga. So this here is those who are interested in material objectives. Their objectives are material. Even if they approach God or any system of religion, all they want is material prosperity. This, according to Gita, is called karma kanda. However, from this stage up is called karma yoga. Yoga means to connect and to develop my relationship with God so that regardless of my material situation, I want to transcend the cycle of birth and death. I want to get liberated. I want to go to the kingdom of God, where I can eternally love and serve God. That is called yoga. The first step, now you may say, well, that's a very good idea. That's a brilliant idea. But how do I begin? According to Gita, anybody can begin from the simple process of karma yoga. Whatever your innate nature, whatever the work you do, you offer that work as a service to God. And that is called karma yoga. Karma means action. You devote and dedicate whatever you're doing. You don't have to change your position. You are studying, you're a student, you work, you have a job. You devote that karma to the service of God. It's called karma yoga. Karma yoga has two sections. One is called sakama karma yoga and the another one is called Nishkam Karma Yoga. Now, when I begin Karma Yoga, I may have a lot of material desires in my heart, or I may be able to devote only a small percentage of my being in the service of God. That is called Sakam Karma Yoga. Krishna says one should come to the platform of Nishkam Karma Yoga. If you read chapter 18, we'll start from 18.1. Can just somebody read the first 12 verses? Page 661.
Arjuna said, O mighty armed one, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation and of the renounced order of life. O killer of Kisi demon, master of the senses. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the giving up of activities that are based on material desire is what great learned men call the renounced order of life. And giving up the results of all activities is what the wise call renunciation.
The giving up of activities which are based on material desire is what the learned man calls sannyasa, and giving up the results of all activities is the wise called tyaga. Okay, text 3.
Some learned men declare that all kinds of fugitive activities should be given up as faulty, yet other sages maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. O bestow Bharatas, now hear my judgment about renunciation. O tiger among men, renunciation is declared in the scriptures to be of three kinds: acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up. They must be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. All these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Partha. That is my final opinion. Prescribed duties should never be renounced. If one gives up his prescribed duties because of illusion, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Anyone who gives up prescribed duties as troublesome or out of fear of bodily discomfort is said to have renounced in the mode of passion. Such action never leads to the elevation of renunciation. O Arjuna, when one performs his prescribed duty only because it ought to be done and renounces all material association and all attachment to the fruit, his renunciation is said to be in the mode of goodness.
So we'll stop here. Text 9 describes what is called as Nishkam Karma Yoga. When one is not attached to material association and attachment to his fruit. In Sakam Karma Yoga, he may give a part of his fruit, but he is still attached to the fruit of his work and to his action. In Nishkam Karma Yoga, he is not attached to the fruit of his work and even to his action itself. He comes to a platform where he can renounce action, and then he becomes eligible for Jnana Yoga. We'll leave Jnana, Ashtanga, and Bhakti for next time. For now, animal life to Karma Kanda, to Sakam Karma and Nishkam Karma Yoga. These will be discussed in the next 18 chapters in much greater detail, verse by verse. This is just an introduction.
Jnana Yoga, what is it?
Ashtanga Yoga. The result of Jnana Yoga is one comes to the level of Brahman. By practicing Nishkam Karma Yoga, one comes to the platform of Jnana, where he attains Brahman. By practicing Ashtanga Yoga, he realizes Paramatma. And by practicing Bhakti Yoga, he realizes Bhagavan. So we'll discuss this more in detail. Okay? Any last comments, anybody? I'll send you homework and assignment which you can do in a couple of hours. And then we will have the forum. If anybody poses a question, I can answer that on the forum.
So what I'll do is I create the Google forum page where everyone, it's like a school board, where people can post questions and you can, each person can answer each of them and everyone else can also see.
Okay. And it will be on the email?
Yeah.
It will
Email
come.
will also come and you can also go on Google page and also.
Yeah, if it can come to my inbox and I can click on it and then reply and post.
Yeah.
I can do it. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sister, we have to put this back in the